It's amazing what plenty of fresh air and a good night's sleep can do for you. And after an evening on the banks of Lake Valdai, I was ready to get moving again. And my archer friend Ask had put me in touch with some of his fellow craftsmen. The Novgorod region is full of forests, and there's a thriving woodworking industry here and plenty of talented guys working in it. And I'm off to see some of the best examples. Roman and his father-in-law Henrik run a successful house fronting business, and almost every piece is locally sourced from the region's trees. And they do some stunning bespoke work too.
This is the kind of furniture we make. It's all handmade. We construct them out of branches that we pick up in the forest.
Their house frontings are all handmade and put together by a team of expert carpenters and the occasional novice. Right, so my little lesson here, this is what we're aiming at. This is what we've got. And I got it going a bit too far across. Oops. Well, at least my heart was in it. So there we are, Novgorod decorations made with love. But the environment here doesn't just play a vital part in the region's economy. It's also an important scientific research site for the famous Valdai Hydrological Institute. It's safe to say that this is a very wet area of Russia, and over the last 50 years they've been studying the rainfall here. In fact, the Valdai control system has become a world-renowned meteorological technique, and a lot of that is down to these. The cut bushes negate the effect of wind on rainfall, allowing scientists like Fyodor to collect highly accurate measurements.
The shrub protects the instruments from snow being kicked up by the wind. I'll show you. Individual shrubs have been trimmed in such a way that all of them are 2 meters high. They take up an area of 70 square meters.
Aside from these special groves, the Institute also takes a range of samples to measure the differences in rainfall levels. And it was time for the daily rounds. So these are going to be our measuring instruments, our containers that we're going to change in. Normally, the scientists would take up to 20 different measurements. But with the temperature plummeting close to 0, I was working a bit of a rush job. Let's see what we've got collected from yesterday in here. Approximately 2.2 millimeters in here. So no great scientific breakthroughs in the last 24 hours. Pretty typical seasonal day in Valdai. But it's not just rainwater that's of interest to the boffins here. As well as offering some pretty spectacular views, Lake Valdai here also has a scientific claim to fame. Supposedly, it's the second purest lake in Russia, just after Lake Baikal. And using this rather interesting device, apparently I'm going to be able to see that for myself. Vladimir, здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте.
So Vladimir is a scientist from the Hydrological Institute, and he's going to take me out. Okay. Formed millions of years ago by migrating glaciers, the lake's clarity varies during the year, and Vladimir and his colleagues are always on hand to make a note of it. It's just a matter of finding the right spot. Yes, we're quite a few meters deep here, and hopefully it should be a good place to take some measurements. Let's do it. Let's see how far we get down. So, down she goes. You've got to keep it coming here. So that is 6 meters.
6,5 метров.
6.5. So we can still see our disc right at the bottom all the way down there, and considering apparently the average for a normal lake is 2.5, I'd say Valdai has its
well-deserved reputation as the second cleanest lake in the country.
Vladimir dropped me off on the shore, and it was time to hit the road again. I was gradually heading back towards Novgorod, but I wasn't done with the waterways just yet.
This little village that I'm passing through is called Opechinsky Posad, and it's actually one of the earliest recorded inhabited places in Russia, dating back to the 10th century. Now, I'm on my way to the largest lake in the region, Lake Ilmen, but I'm looking for a bit of a shortcut.
The town lies on the banks of the Mosta River, and it's perfect for a more direct route, assuming you can find the right transportation. Valery and the boys are experienced rafters, and the Mosta River has some of the best white water in European Russia. Everything seemed pretty gentle, but I was warned not to get too comfortable.
Don't be lulled by the quiet waters. This is just the calm before the storm. It's much tougher in spring, when the water rises as high as the top slabs of that embankment. At that point, the water is 3 meters higher than what it is right now.
The Mosta used to be a vital supply route, and a few hundred years ago, the river would have been jammed with ships making their way to St. Petersburg. Apparently, back in 1785, the British ambassador once defied the express command of Tsarina Catherine the Great and rode the rapids here. And I could hear them in the distance.
So things are just starting to speed up a little bit here. Now, the last time I did this, it was midsummer and about 25 degrees Celsius out. A little bit different today. 5 degrees in the water. Hoppa! Life. Hoppa!
But there are one or two things it's worth getting out of the raft for.
I'm doing a little extreme sightseeing on this trip as well, because just over here, up this waterfall, is supposed to be one of the largest caves in all of European Russia. And it's also got one of the longest underground streams as well, going 1,400 meters back.
And along the riverbanks, you can find fossils buried in the rock face. Go rafting here, and you're combining a white-knuckle ride with a trip back in time.
So we made it. Ilmen's just round the corner. And I've had a great little sightseeing trip along the way. And I didn't even get wet.
And the Great Lake is edged by a wild and beautiful landscape.
I'm here on the banks of the mighty Lake Ilmen, approximately 1,500 square kilometers of water. And over there in the distance you can see Great Novgorod, and I'm actually on a pathway that was originally designed to be a roadway to the capital. It was thought up by Ekaterina the Great in the 18th century, but as you can see, the builders didn't quite get it finished.
My trip was nearly over, but I had one more highlight left on my route.
Aside from all the footwork, I really feel like I've also had a journey through the history of the Novgorod region. And I know that around here there should be somewhere which could be the icing on the cake.
And lo and behold,
Zoons, what manner of cloth is this? Methinks I have found the right place.
this is Lubitina, and it's a picture-perfect reconstruction of a 10th century Slavic village.
Well,
Flour grinding.
we make flour here.
Неплохо, да?
You've made it. Very good.
A little bit for today's bread.
Everything is based on archaeological data, from the design and insulation of the buildings to the lifestyles of the inhabitants, right down to the games they used to play. And apparently Gorad Key was a real favourite.
So it looks like we've got a cross between baseball and skittles here.
And And a good Goradki score equals respect in this village. So it was important that I got the swing and a miss out of the way early.
There we go. Honed my 10th century skills there.
Молодец.
Finally, success. And Ludmilla rewarded me with a gift fresh from the village ovens.
This piece of bread will be just enough to feed you on the way.
So I've picked up some fashionably retro new clothes, some supplies. I'm ready to hit the road for Novgorod.
I might have had the odd funny look along the way, but as I entered the capital again and walked past its magnificent old Kremlin, my outfit felt rather appropriate. But I couldn't be Brown the Boyar forever.
Well, I've hiked, driven, rafted and ridden my way around the region, and I'm finally back in Great Novgorod. It's been quite an adventure, but I think it's time for me to get back to the 21st century before I make my way home.